Stand on Zanzibar, published in 1968, is set in a future world which is buckling under the weight of massive overpopulation, which has resulted in governments introducing strict reproductive policies. And you also have these megacorporations which have risen to great power, having influence over geopolitics, with their slogans and products seeping deeply into the minds of people and popular culture. The narrative structure here is completely fragmented, telling a number of interwoven stories from the perspectives of many characters around the world. And there are also these interstitial passages of fictional book extracts, poetry excerpts, newspaper articles, radio broadcasts, etc. The two key plot lines here revolve around two fictional nations. One of them is an African nation called Benin, where there is said to be no violent crime at all, and this has attracted the attention of one megacorporation in particular called General Technics. And the other one is Yatakang in Southeast Asia, where the government is claiming that they found a way to genetically engineer or selectively breed a race of superhumans, and this has caused widespread panic among the world governments. This is a very long novel. This particular edition comes in at nearly 600 pages, and this length, combined with the amount of characters, the multiple plot lines, and just the amount of themes that Brunner is tackling here, make it difficult to follow at times, and it can be confusing and characters can start to meld together. And weirdly, it walked this relatively flat tonal line for me. There are peaks and troughs in terms of the pacing, but I think overall it lacked this kind of punch that I was looking for from this subject matter, and mostly fell flat in the end. A lot is made about the prescience of this book, and you take it for granted a little bit while you're reading it. Brunner includes overpopulation, legalization of certain substances, mass shootings, which is actually a really stark one to read, wearable technology, that influence of these mega corporations on geopolitics. And while these are more widespread general predictions, there are some really specific ones, like the collapse of the Detroit motor industry, for example. So while I wouldn't necessarily say that I enjoyed Stand on Zanzibar, I was often impressed by it, and it is one of my favourite book titles of all time. Next up, we've got Nightwings by Robert Silverberg, which is set in a far future where humanity have risen and fallen multiple times in these cycles, which has resulted in humanity splitting out into these different guilds and subspecies of genetically engineered humans. We're following a main character here who is part of the Watchers Guild, and they are tasked with monitoring space using this specialised equipment to scan for signs of what's said to be an inevitable alien invasion from a race who want to exact revenge on humanity for the crimes committed against them in the distant past. He is accompanied by a mysterious stranger who is guildless, he's not part of one of these guilds, and a flyer who is this young girl who has these retractable wings, and she can only fly at night because the solar winds are too strong for her fragile wings to be effective in the daytime. The Watchers Guild has never picked up any sign of this alien invasion, but this mysterious stranger travelling with our main character here makes a really startling claim which sets in motion these far-reaching and potentially catastrophic events. In this world, there are a number of alien races who are living and visiting on Earth, and they are completely peaceful, and Silverberg constructs a really distinctive, bizarre world in Nightwings. which he does through his effortless and wonderful writing style. Some of the characters are lusting over this girl who I think is 15 or 16 in the story, which could rub some readers the wrong way, but Silverberg is tackling some of his familiar themes in here around guilt and shame associated with these feelings. And it is a short book, but it does pack that punch that I was talking about being missing from Stand on Zanzibar. So I think this is not my favourite Robert Silverberg that I've read so far, but I do think it's him on top form. And then finally, we've got Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. And the titular story here is the one which inspired a number of different film adaptations, but most importantly, John Carpenter's The Thing. And I'm not actually going to be talking about that story in this video. I'm going to be doing that in a dedicated one coming up, where I'm going to be doing something a bit different. In this one, I'm going to be talking about the other stories that are included in here, because this is actually a collection of short stories alongside the novella Who Goes There. And I'm going to need my notes for this one. So the first one is Blindness, which is set in 2050, where the scientists are orbiting our sun, trying to harness its power to develop a sustainable energy source for Earth. And this is a hard science fiction story with honestly quite a sad tone, which I did quite enjoy. Next up, we've got Frictional Loss, which is about these characters rooting around in the ruins of New York City, following an invasion from an alien race called the Granthi, which resulted in this nuclear war, which fended off the invaders but devastated Earth in the process. And these characters are trying to reproduce some lost technology, which specifically focuses on friction as a scientific principle. So it does get a little bit technical in places. Again, this is hard science fiction, which is something that John W. Campbell really pushed for. He is one of the most important figures in the history of science fiction, and I did enjoy this one as well. Next up, we've got my favourite one in the collection, which is Dead Knowledge. And this follows three humans who are investigating an abandoned alien city on a dead world in a distant solar system. And they are finding the corpses of these humanoid alien beings, clutching at these empty ruby vials of this mysterious liquid, which they determine to be poison, leading them to believe that this entire planet committed these mass suicides, and they are investigating this mystery. I won't say any more than that because I think it would be getting into spoiler territory. I think this is an amazing short story, and it's actually reinvigorated my interest in science fiction short stories, which I'm now going to be reading much more of in the coming year. We've then got Elimination, which follows two inventors who develop this device, which is kind of like a television, which visually portrays potential future timelines. And one of the inventors becomes quite obsessed with trying to find the timeline which is the most optimal in terms of his lifespan and also the quality of his life. This one gets a little bit into the kind of butterfly effect, where the timelines he is scanning for on one day are different to the next because of decisions he makes in between those scans. And I enjoyed this one as well. Next up, we've got Twilight, which follows a hitchhiker who claims he's from the year 3050, who is recounting a time where he accidentally travelled 7 million years into the future. And John W. Campbell gives us this glimpse of a very distant human civilization in the future, which I think was quite fascinating. And lastly, we have Night, which is pretty similar, to be honest. It follows a man testing an anti-gravity device who finds himself transported into the very far future, where the sun is dying and humanity have been completely wiped out. So overall, I really enjoyed these short stories in this collection. There is this kind of melancholy or sadness that seems to be a theme throughout John W. Campbell's work here. And again, I'm going to be talking about Who Goes There, the titular story in that collection, in an upcoming video, so watch out for that one. That's everything for today. I am continuing my reading challenge of science fiction, the 100 best novels by David Pringle. Only Stand on Zanzibar is part of this list and the other two aren't. And I think that's going to be my approach going forward. I'm going to be reading some things from this list and some things that are not in this list to give myself a variety of science fiction from different authors and from different eras. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.